Good morning.
Good morning.
Buenos días.
Welcome to Healthy Connections Workshop number 1.
Bienvenidos a clase 1 de Conexiones Saludables.
I'm Linda Luna Franks. I'm the Executive Director of Kid Healthy.
Ella se llama Linda Luna Franks y es la directora ejecutiva de Kid Healthy.
You may know us through our Padres en Acción program that we run in several Anaheim elementary schools.
A lo mejor nos conocen de nuestro programa Padres en Acción, en donde vamos a muchas escuelas a apoyar.
Our mission is to provide parent education in nutrition and physical activity, as well as lead parent-led active recess.
Nuestra misión es apoyar con educación a nuestros padres y líder en activo en
Nutrición, educación, nutrición y actividad física. We're so pleased to be partnering with Ponderosa Family Resource Center in the city of Anaheim, the Samueli Foundation, and the University of California, Irvine.
Estamos bien emocionados de estar en colaboración con Samueli Foundation, con la City of Anaheim, Ponderosa y la Universidad de Irvine, donde están de ellos.
Today is class 1 in a series of 8 classes.
Hoy es la clase 1 de serie de 8 clases,
They'll always take place on the third Thursday of the month.
que siempre van a estar en el tercer jueves de cada mes.
Today, our culinary presenters are Dana Lee and Silvana Marquina.
Las que van a presentar hoy es Selvina y Dana, los estudiantes de Irvine.
They're both medical students, third, fourth year,
Yeah,
I believe,
third year.
at the University of California, Irvine.
Son estudiantes su tercer año de medicina en la Universidad de Irvine.
So today, because we have you here and present, thank you very much.
Hoy los tenemos a ustedes aquí presentes. Gracias por venir.
And we also have people joining us on Zoom.
También tenemos personas por Zoom que se están conectando.
So we have to do direct translation.
Por eso tenemos que ser yo la translator.
For those of you joining us on Zoom, please ensure that you're muted. If you have a question, use the raise hand feature and I'll be happy to answer as soon as possible.
Los que están en la casa, por favor de poner mute a su buzón y si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor ponerlo en el chat box.
Enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Dana, as Linda mentioned.
Hi everyone, my name is Silvana.
Hola, buenos días. Como dijo Linda, ella se llama Dana y ella es Selvina y son estudiantes de Irvine.
We're very excited to teach this first class. So for our audience here, the presentation will be up there. And on Zoom, Linda will be sharing our PowerPoint.
Están emocionados de hacer esta presentación, así como estaba explicando, aquí va a ser la presentación arriba de la televisión.
Okay. So thank you. Our first presentation today is going to be on the Mediterranean diet.
Hoy nuestra presentación va a ser de la dieta mediterránea.
So what is the Mediterranean diet? It's actually not so much a diet, but more of a food pattern that is shared by a lot of the countries around the Mediterranean Sea, like Greece, Spain, and Turkey.
La dieta mediterránea es en realidad más una secuencia de alimentos que comparten muchos países como Grecia, Turquía y España.
The great thing about this diet is that there are no specific rules that you have to follow and no restrictions on foods that you can't eat.
Lo bueno de esto es que no hay reglas específicas o seguir restricciones sobre qué se puede comer y qué no se puede comer.
And the focus is actually on getting more whole plant foods and lean meats into your diet.
Es importante destacar que se concentra en obtener más alimentos integrales, vegetales y grasas saludables.
Another great thing is that this Mediterranean diet, you can actually incorporate foods from all different kinds of cultures, like Asian cuisine, Latin cuisine, not just those cuisines around the Mediterranean.
Además, los alimentos de muchas culturas pueden encajar en esta dieta, no solo los alimentos que nacen en esta región.
Okay. And there's actually been a lot of research studies done on this diet that Silvana will talk about later. And they've actually shown that this diet has helped to reduce your risk of developing medical conditions such as diabetes.
Muchos estudios de investigación han descubierto que esta dieta está asociado con un mejor riesgo de desarrollar condiciones médicas como la diabetes.
Okay, so moving on to the next slide.
Vamos a pasar al segundo slide.
So this is the Mediterranean diet pyramid.
Esta es la dieta mediterránea pirámide.
This will help you to figure out in your daily meals what you would like to incorporate more of or include more of in your diet.
Esta pirámide de la dieta puede ayudar a elegir de qué comer más y de qué comer menos.
As you can see at the bottom of the pyramid, there is a big emphasis on getting foods such as vegetables, greens, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, and legumes.
La base de la pirámide, si puede ver abajo, se enfoca en el consumo de verduras, frutas, granos enteros, nueces y legumbres.
These should be the basis of your meals and ideally would encompass about like half of your plate.
Las fuentes de proteína se deben comer con moderación y se puede incluir proteína magra como los mariscos y el vino.
In the middle of the pyramid are foods that you can eat in moderation, and these include animal proteins such as fish and poultry.
Así como dije que en el medio puede comer como pescados y los mariscos.
And also dairy and wine can also be eaten and consumed in moderation. And actually wine has been shown to be helpful in moderation for heart health.
El vino han estudios que han hecho del vino que sí puede ayudar con el corazón.
Okay, and then at the top of the pyramid are foods that you can still eat, but in less quantities compared to the other parts of the pyramid. And these include foods like red meat, sweets, and processed foods like frozen food or fast food.
En la parte superior de la pirámide se encuentran los alimentos que aún se pueden comer, pero en porciones más pequeñas, como las carnes rojas, los dulces y la comida procesada.
And another important part of the Mediterranean lifestyle overall is to be able to enjoy your meals with friends and family, and that can include cooking with your family as well as also incorporating exercise into your weekly routines.
Otro aspecto importante del estilo de la vida de esta dieta es disfrutar de las comidas con amigos y familiares. Lo que también pueden implicar es el cocinar juntos, además de mantenerse físicamente activo.
Okay. Moving on to the next slide.
Okay, vamos a ir al otro slide.
Okay, so these are the specific food categories that can help you figure out what to incorporate into your daily and weekly meals.
Estas son las típicas categorías de alimentos que son genial para poner y incorporar en sus comidas diarias y semanales.
The first category at the top is vegetables, and since they were the bigger part of the pyramid, it's recommended that you have 2 to 3 cups a day or 1 serving each meal.
Por ejemplo, las verduras, como verduras verdes, zanahorias, chiles, championes, coliflor, pueden servir de 2 a 3 tazas por día o aproximadamente una porción por comida.
One interesting thing about vegetables is that frozen vegetables are actually often just as nutritious as fresh vegetables because they are picked at the peak time of their season.
También una fact en esta es que las verduras que están congeladas son también igual saludables y igual son más nutritivas.
The second category is legumes. These include things like beans, chickpeas, and tofu, and these should be eaten in about 2 to 3 servings per week.
Legumbres son la segunda categoría y son como frijoles, lentejas, chícharos y garbanzos, y igual se puede comer 2 a 3 porciones en una semana.
And an interesting thing about beans that we've discovered is that black beans may be more nutritious for you than other beans like pinto because they have less carbs and less fat, but they're also still high in fiber and nutrients.
Los frijoles negros pueden ser más nutritivos que otros como los frijoles pintos porque tienen menos carbohidratos.
The third category is fruits and nuts. These are eaten in about 1 to 2 servings per day.
La tercera categoría son las frutas y nueces y se pueden comer en 1 a 2 porciones cada día.
And these include things like whole fruit, even like tomatoes and avocados, and you can even have flavored nuts as a snack.
Esto incluye los tomates y aguacates, así como los nueces salados o con sabor para bocadillos.
The fourth category is another thing that you would want to incorporate into each meal in 2 to 3 servings per day, and these are whole grains and cereals.
Otra categoría que se puede ingerir de 2 a 3 porciones son la categoría 4, los granos enteros y cereales.
Some example of these are whole grain pastas, whole grain breads, and quinoa, which will be in our recipe today.
Unos ejemplos de estos son los granos enteros, trigo entero, maíz, palomitas, arroz, entregar, tortillas de maíz y la quinoa.
And the last category encompasses animal proteins like seafood. These are also recommended at 2 to 3 servings each week.
Y la quinta categoría son los mariscos. Los mariscos son una de las categorías enumeradas como moderación en 2 a 3 porciones por la semana.
Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so next we'd like to talk about some examples of healthy fats and proteins that you can incorporate into your meals.
Ahora queremos hablar de unos ejemplos de grasas y proteínas saludables que pueden incorporar en su dieta.
The fats that are considered more beneficial for your health are called unsaturated fats.
Las grasas saludables se llaman insaturadas.
These fats are usually seen as liquids at room temperature.
Estas grasas saludables suelen ser líquidos a temporada ambiente.
Some oils that would be great to cook with are olive oil, grapeseed oil, sesame oil, even avocado oil.
Unos aceites con que se puede cocinar puede ser aceite de oliva, semilla de uva y de sésamo.
And some foods that have these healthy fats include avocados, nuts, seeds, and seafood.
Las comidas que tienen estos aceites son aguacates, nueces, semillas y mariscos.
And some examples of leaner meats would be salmon, tuna, chicken, and tofu, and other fish that are high in good fats.
Y otras comidas que son altos en carne amarga son salmón, atún, pollo y tofu, igual como pescado que están altos en grasas finas.
These foods really help to lower your bad cholesterol levels and increase your good cholesterol.
Estos colesteroles malos pueden conducir a condiciones médicas como enfermedad del corazón y diabetes.
And some examples of like the bad cholesterols would be red meats, things like burgers and butter and sweets.
Y a cosas como del mal colesterol sería como miel roja, hamburguesas,
Sweets, something like that, yeah.
dulces y
Yeah, and then let's see, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, nuts are actually also another great snack or addition to your meals that are high in protein.
Los nueces son una excelente merienda y también se pueden incorporar a las comidas en su dieta.
And some research studies have been done comparing the different nuts, and they've actually found that walnuts are very beneficial for your health.
Un hecho interesante es que los estudios han encontrado que los nueces son particularmente beneficiosos para la salud.
They found that eating at least 3 servings each week was actually associated with a lower risk of dying from cancer.
Comer 3 o más porciones de nueces a la semana se asoció con un bajo porcentaje de riesgo de morir de cáncer.
Walnuts were also shown to improve your blood flow and lower your risk of heart problems and stroke.
Comer nueces también puede mejorar el flujo sanguíneo y disminuir el riesgo de problemas cardíacos y accidentes cerebrales.
And some other healthy nuts we recommend are almonds, pistachios, cashews, and peanuts.
Al igual, también recomendamos otras como las almendras, los pistachos, los anacardos y los cacahuates.
And you can see that a typical serving would be like a handful or about 12 to 4 halves on the presentation.
Y como pueden ver en la foto que la porción más ideal sería como una de su mano.
All right, and then next I'll turn the presentation over to my partner Silvana, who will be talking about more of the research done on the Mediterranean diet.
Y ahora Silvana nos va a presentar más de estudios que han hecho sobre esta dieta.
Okay. All right, hi everyone. My name is Silvana. I wanted to start off with talking about macronutrients.
Hoy va a empezar a hablar con macronutrientes.
So the main macronutrients that we know of are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
Los que sabemos nosotros son carbohydrates, proteínas y
Fats,
fats.
de grasas. So there was a study that was done that looked at 4 very popular US diets.
Hicieron un estudio donde estaban viendo 4 grupos.
You may have heard of them. One is the Atkins diet or the South Beach diet.
Uno es el Atkins dieta,
And then Ornish and the Zone diet.
Ornish en la zona
and then Weight Watchers.
y luego Weight Watchers.
So, yeah, have you guys heard of them?
¿Han escuchado de esas dietas?
Weight Watchers? Okay. Well, Atkins diet, the South Beach diet, is known for being carbohydrate restrictive.
El estudio de Atkins restringe los carbohidratos.
So reducing carbs. The Ornish diet is more fat restrictive, so limiting fats.
El Ornish se restringe las grasas.
And then Weight Watchers is calorie restrictive, so it's very particular about diminishing calories.
Los Weight Watchers se restringen a las calorías.
And then Zone looks at all of them, all of the
Y el
macronutrients.
de Zone se enfoca más en el balance de las macronutrientes o de todos.
So there was a study that looked at 160 women and put them into these 4 categories.
Un estudio se hizo en donde 160 mujeres fueron asignados a uno de estos 4 categorías.
And they followed them for about 1 year and documenting their weight and the types of foods that they were eating according to their diet.
Examinaron a estos 4 grupos durante un año y examinaron sus registros de alimentos registrados por ellos mismos.
Yeah, so I guess just by looking at the graph, those on web and then also you guys in the audience, what are your guys' assumptions? What do you guys think could have happened?
¿Qué piensan que pasaron basado en el graph que vieron ahí arriba? No sé si la pueden ver también, ¿verdad?
So they saw that in 2 months, they all did really well. They all lost about 3 kilograms.
¿Qué? En 2 meses vieron que sí, todos hicieron bien, ¿verdad? Perdieron 3 kilogramos.
But among all the groups, they tend to gain that weight back after a year.
Pero en todos los grupos vieron que en un año igual subieron todo ese peso durante ese año.
Yeah, and Atkins actually gained the most weight back.
Y el grupo de Atkins fueron los que subieron más de peso.
But the difference between them was not significant.
Pero la diferencia entre los 4 no era tan significado.
So the question is, what happened? Was there one that did not work better? And even the group that had all of the macronutrients combined didn't do much better.
Entonces, ¿qué pasó aquí si uno tenía...
Which one could have been better? Like, which even the macronutrient diet didn't do better.
¿Por qué no hicieron bien y por qué los macronutrientes tampoco hicieron bien?
So the discussion was what is this the yo-yo dieting where people are restricting their calories and restricting certain foods, or can there be something else that can help people lose weight?
¿Esta es la dieta de yo-yo que estaban haciendo o puede ser otra cosa que estaban haciendo para reducir este peso?
Right. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today. What Dana was talking about was emphasizing quality of foods versus quantity of foods.
Y eso es lo que querían hacer ellos, ¿verdad? Enfocarse en la calidad sobre las dietas regulares y que no mantienen el peso.
Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. All right, so there was a large study that was done in Europe, and they wanted to look at different lifestyles, diet, biology, and environmental factors.
Este estudio fue parte de un estudio más grande realizado en Europa para ver si podían ver secuencias en el estilo de la vida, la dieta, la biología y los factores ambientes.
So they looked at 22,000 Greek participants to see how their diet affected heart disease.
Observaron a más de 20,000 participantes griegos e identificaron más de 150 alimentos de consumo común y los clasificaron en una punción de dieta mediterránea, de 0 a 9.
Yeah, one of the questions that they were thinking about was why is this population living so long? They're called the centenarians. Why are they living up to 100 years?
La pregunta lo que querían saber es por qué anda viviendo este grupo más largo tiempo, ¿verdad?
So the study was they looked at their diet and they scaled it from 0 to 9, 9 being the most adherent to the Mediterranean diet.
Lo que vieron es que la dieta dieron de 0 a 9, siendo el 9 más rico en verduras.
Yes, most rich in vegetables, nuts, fruits, lean meats.
En verduras, frutas secos, frutas, carnes margas.
And then 0, resembling a diet made up of Western processed food, sugar, and salty foods.
Y 0 muy parecido a una dieta occidental compuesta de alimentos procesados, azucarados y saldados.
So they followed this group for 4 years. And those who adhered to the Mediterranean diet had a total reduction in mortality.
El estudio siguió a este grupo durante aproximadamente 4 años y vio que aquellos que se adhirieron a la dieta tuvieron una reducción en la mortalidad total.
And just a 2-point increase on the 0 to 9 scale resulted in a 25% reduction in mortality.
Y a un aumento de 2 puntos en la escala de la dieta se correlacionó con una reducción del 25% en la mortalidad.
And I wanted to show you guys a picture of the olive oil up on there, and then for those on the web, sorry, go ahead.
Y le van a enseñar, le quería enseñar una foto allá arriba del aceite de oliva.
Just like Dana had mentioned before, olive oil and avocado oil helps reduce the bad cholesterol and raise good cholesterol.
Así como digo, como había comentado antes en el estudio anterior, existen diferentes calidades de aceites que debes de conocer.
All right, and then the next slide. All right, so, and then later on, there was another study that was done to look at different types of fats in the Mediterranean diet to see which one is better.
Y luego también hicieron otro estudio que hicieron en el Mediterráneo para ver qué
Tipo de grasa.
tipo de grasa era bueno, malo.
So this trial was done in Spain called Prevención con Dieta Mediterránea that looked at 7,400 people who already had a significant risk of cardiovascular disease, and they were assigned to, oh, go ahead.
Un ensayo realizado en España que analizó más de 7,000 personas que ya tenían un riesgo significado de enfermedad cardiovascular y fueron asignados a esta dieta.
So this was a population that already had a cardiac event, a heart attack or a stroke, and they wanted to see would they have it again.
Esta comunidad, estas personas que ellos analizaron ya tuvieron un tipo de, como por ejemplo algo en el corazón, alguna enfermedad.
O infarto de corazón. And so they were assigned to the Mediterranean diet with olive oil or Mediterranean diet with nuts. As you can see, Evo is olive oil and then nuts. And then those that were just told to eliminate fats.
Okay, hay unos que fueron, a lo largo de 4 años, los participantes fueron educados cada 3 meses sobre su plan de dieta.
So after 4 years, the group that was in the olive oil and the nuts, as you can see, had a decreased risk of another cardiovascular event happening.
Después de 4 años vieron que había menos eventos cardiovasculares como un ataque al corazón.
And that there was no difference. Using olive oil and nuts was both beneficial.
Y que no había diferencia que usando el aceite era igual beneficio.
All right, so to wrap it all up, we wanted to talk about mindfulness of eating.
Okay, nomás para terminar esta presentación, querían hablar también de la conciencia.
Yeah, so I think in the Western diet and in the Western lifestyle, we tend to eat really fast and we don't watch the plate in front of us while we're eating.
Así como aquí, ¿no? ¿Verdad? Nosotros estamos comiendo más, no estamos viendo lo que estamos comiendo más comida por afuera.
Yeah, sometimes we're on our phone, sometimes we're watching TV, and we just are eating, and sometimes we don't feel full and we go for a second plate.
A veces estamos viendo televisión, estamos en nuestros teléfonos, estamos comiendo y no estamos viendo realmente la cantidad que estamos comiendo.
Yeah, and something we wanted to also adopt from the Mediterranean lifestyle is the concept of being together with family and enjoying food with one another and taking stock of what we're eating.
Lo que queríamos llevarnos juntos de esta dieta es de convivir con su familia mientras están comiendo, ¿verdad? Están juntos con ella, hablar de los buenos dieta que pueden comer juntos.
And emphasizing again that quality of food, quality of healthy foods like your vegetables and fruits, and not being shy with it and using more portions.
Y igual también empezar que la comida, obviamente, todas las ciudades que miren aquí es lo más importante y que no le dé pena de comer y servir a toda su familia, ¿verdad? Porque al final eso nos beneficia a nosotros.
All right.
All right, so that concludes our presentation portion, and we're going to be moving on to our recipe now, which will be a chicken stir fry with quinoa on the side.
Okay, y luego eso concluye nuestra presentación y van a hacer un salteado de verduras con pollo o tofu.
Actually, before we start, did anybody have any questions regarding the presentation overall?
¿Alguna pregunta que tenía?
Yes.
¿Es un mito o es realidad que el aceite de oliva no se puede calentar?
¿Puede repetirlo otra vez?
Que si es un mito o es realidad que el aceite de oliva no se puede calentar cuando vamos a temperatura fuerte.
Yeah, I can talk
You can
about
say it,
that. So the question was, is there a certain like temperature where you burn the olive oil where it's not beneficial anymore? And I have heard that's true. Make sure you don't see smoke coming out. Burning it to a temperature where you heat it up, and you can add a little bit of water to see it's like spark everywhere.
Puede mirar cuando ya se empieza a calentar, pero no se debe calentar tanto.
Yeah, you don't want to burn the olive oil because then it's not beneficial anymore.
Ya no quieren quemarlo porque luego ya no va a ser beneficiario para ustedes.
Yeah, but avocado oil actually has a higher boiling temperature, so that one could also be used and also has all the healthy fats as well.
Y también pueden usar el aceite de aguacate, no sé si han escuchado de eso, también tiene muchos nutrientes que se pueden usar.
Yeah, and the temperature.
Y la
Yeah.
temperatura es más,
Alto.
It's
más alta.
Yeah, to boiling. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so we'll start now with our recipe, which is the chicken stir fry. We'll start by making the quinoa. Has anyone in the audience cooked quinoa before?
¿Algunos de ustedes han cocinado quinoa?
Okay, great. Well, quinoa is one of the whole grains, and it's actually really high in protein and fiber.
Es uno de nuestros granos
Show
y
it to the
también
camera.
están bien altos en fibra y
And it's a
proteína.
Okay, so how this is usually cooked is you'll get a pot with a lid,
Voy a agarrar un pot con su,
and it's 1 part quinoa to 2 parts liquid.
es una parte quinoa y luego dos partes
Liquid.
como agua.
Yeah.
Agua.
So here I have half a cup of quinoa that I'm going to add to the pot,
Tiene medio taza de quinoa que se va a poner en su pot
and I have 1 cup of chicken broth or chicken stock.
y luego tiene
Yes.
uno.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, a cup of chicken broth or chicken stock. You can also use water as well.
También caldo de pollo o caldo o agua que se puede usar.
Okay. And now we're just gonna heat it up until the water is boiling.
Ok, y luego ahorita nomás lo van a prender para hasta cuando el agua está hirviendo.
All
And then
right.
once it boils, you can cover it.
Yeah. And then once the water is boiling, we're gonna turn the temperature down to low and let it simmer for 20 minutes.
Luego ya que el agua está hirviendo, hay que ponerle para atrás para que se esperen unos 20 minutos.
Okay. So we'll let that go while we start with the chicken.
Yeah.
Luego ya van a empezar con el pollo.
Okay. So an important thing before we start is that we also had to marinate our chicken for 20 minutes.
Tenían que también hacer su pollo
Oh,
marinado.
do you want to do it so I can pull this thing?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the chicken,
So Vanna will be cutting up the chicken, and I'll show you what is going to be in the marinade.
Okay, so if you guys could see, I'll try to explain a little bit. So you want to cut it into bite-sized pieces. I have here like a probably like almost like a pound to pound, half pound to pound chicken.
Tiene una libra de pollo. Y si quieren cortados como en pedacitos de cubitos que se puede usar como hielo.
Perfect. So yeah, cut into slices first, and then what it looks like is it'll look like this.
Luego, si miran ahí, no sé si vamos a ver, para que miren, así se va a ver.
When it's completely marinated for 20 minutes. So in the marinade, we added some rice vinegar, about a teaspoon of each thing. Some rice vinegar, some honey,
Some chicken stock.
some soy sauce,
Agregaron vinegar,
hot sauce,
un
And
tipo
then-
de salsa picante, aquí usaron tapatío,
and then about a third cup of chicken broth.
y luego caldo de pollo.
You can also add sesame oil too. The sesame oil gives it a nice flavor as well.
También se puede agregar aceite de sésamo.
And if we have extra, we'll give you guys some
Y
when
si
you go out.
tienen unos ahorita, le van a dar para que prueben un poquito.
I'll move this out of the way for you.
And then veggies. Okay. All right. So the thing about the veggies is on the recipe that you guys will see when you head out. There is a mixture of hard vegetables and soft vegetables. You want to make sure you cook the hard ones first.
Van a ver igual ustedes cómo pueden hacerlo en casa porque a salida va a haber un papel de todas las instrucciones y pueden ver que en los vegetales pueden usar vegetales más duros o vegetales normales.
For a knife, sorry. It should have been on here.
All right. So yeah, making sure you guys cut the hard vegetables first.
Y asegúrense de cortar primero los vegetales duros.
And then a really cool trick that I learned from one of our culinary med chefs. Okay. I guess
Yeah. Thank you.
something that was interesting is like, how do you cut broccoli and cauliflower without making a mess? Because sometimes, have you guys done this at home where you cut the head and it just goes everywhere? Well, if you cut the top and then you pull it apart,
Aprendió que primero
it doesn't make that much of a mess.
arriba y luego quitar los
No, just-
frutos y ya no hace tanto cochinero.
Yep, so just pull it apart. And it works for the broccoli and cauliflower as well.
Y sirve para el brócoli y el coliflor.
So this is just for the demonstration purpose. We have everything cut out magically for us over
Es
there.
para demostración, aquí ya lo tienen todo preparado.
But for each one, it's about 1 onion diced, 1 carrot, cup of carrots diced as well, and
Una cebolla, una zanahoria igual, cortados en cubitos como los llanos.
and then for the garlic, as you guys know, probably 4 cloves of garlic.
Y luego
So,
igual 4 de pimienta.
and then break the garlic cloves up.
And then while Silvana is cutting up the vegetables, I'll be starting with cooking the chicken.
Y luego mientras ella está cortando los vegetales, va a empezar con el pollo.
So we'll start by heating the pan on like medium to high heat.
Van a empezar con hacerlo en medio a alto presión.
And then we'll be adding olive oil once that gets hot.
Y luego van a echarle lo que es aceite de oliva.
One thing to do first.
Pardon me.
Oh,
This is in the way.
in the recipe, also, it's important after you heat the olive oil to add the garlic and the onions first to get the flavor.
También es importante de poner lo que es la cebolla
Oh, and ajo.
y el ajo.
All right.
Okay,
So
yeah.
maybe a little bit more time.
Should we do another vegetable?
Yeah.
Onions?
Okay. So let's cut some onions. So I like to cut it long ways first.
Ahorita está cortando lo que es la cebolla, ¿verdad? En largos.
Yeah, and make sure because you're gonna be eating this as like a bowl, make sure they're not long. Just make sure you're cutting them small into small bite-sized pieces so you're not getting a whole spoonful of onion.
And again, we'll just be cooking the chicken, spreading it out into the pan.
Ahorita lo que están haciendo está cocinando lo que es el pollo y ya está terminando de hacer los vegetales, de cortarlos.
We just want the chicken to be cooked through, just finished, and then we'll be putting it off to the side because we don't want to burn it because we'll be cooking it with all the other vegetables as well later.
Ahorita lo que no quieren es obviamente quemarlo porque lo van a hacer y no lo quieren cocinar ya terminar porque lo van a poner juntos con los vegetales.
So we'll let that sit for a bit.
And then another tip for the garlic that we learned from our culinary medicine class is cutting the garlic in smaller pieces 15 minutes before. Something about like the juices and the garlic that gets all of the nutrients out.
Que también antes de ponerlo que corten la pimienta
El ajo.
o el ajo.
El ajo.
15 minutos antes que se lo van a poner a su pollo porque le dan más el sabor y es más jugoso.
And garlic has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. So you may have heard like it's good sometimes to put garlic in like teas to help. When you're sick, sometimes it opens up the nasal mucosa. So
No sé si han escuchado que también el ajo es bueno para ustedes y a veces también que se lo ponen a su té, para eso le ayuda a abrir lo que es.
yeah, con ayuda como es como decongestant. A decongestant como la inflamación de las mucosas
Si
nasales.
tiene mocos, le ayuda a abrir lo que es eso, ¿verdad? Para poder oler más.
Yeah, entonces es importante hacer el ajo primero, deja que los jugos salgan, que darle su tiempo, give them their time. Sorry.
Están sus tiempos, ¿no?
Yeah. How's the chicken looking?
The chicken's looking good, almost halfway cooked.
Ya
Another
van a
thing that,
terminar con
yeah.
el pollo.
Another thing that you can add instead of chicken would be tofu or any of the lean fish that we mentioned before, like salmon or any white fish.
Lo que puede también agregar, si no quiere poner pollo, salmón puede poner o igual comida tofu.
I tried tofu actually the other day. I just cut it into like half-inch pieces to 1 inch.
Ella sí usó también tofu y lo cortó en pedazos chiquitas como de media.
Yeah, make sure to buy the extra firm tofu though, because it breaks.
Pero
Yeah.
asegúrese de comprar tofu que es más firme porque sí se rompe rápido.
Yeah. But yeah, that one will take more time, just because the tofu doesn't cook as fast as the chicken. Chicken can cook a little bit faster.
Pero eso sí, para calentar se va a tardar un poquito más porque no es como el pollo que se cocina más rápido.
All right, how are the veggies?
Good. Just
Okay. Do you want to switch off and I can do some of the other veggies?
okay, sure.
Maybe we can like move the rest of this out of the way. Okay.
There's another cutting board right here too. Where is it?
Okay. So since we're adding a bunch of veggies into this stir fry today, the next one we'll be doing is bell pepper. So the trick that we like to do for bell pepper is to cut off the stem first.
Mira, lo que está cortando primero es la verde de arriba.
So that way we have like a good base to turn the bell pepper on.
Para que, como pueden ver, para que haya una base más fina donde pueden cortarlo.
And then I like to start from the bottom and like kind of cut downwards.
Empieza de arriba y cortar para abajo.
And then this way it allows you to avoid all the seeds and more mess on your cutting board.
Puede ver, le ayuda a no hacer tanto cochinero en su cocina.
There we go. And then see, you can see all the seeds are just going to be off to the side.
Ahí están adentro todo lo que es la...
And then again for here we want some smaller strips so that way they all cook evenly.
Y aquí se mira quiere unas porciones más chiquitas.
And the easy way to do this as well is to have the skin side down.
Y la más fácil manera de hacerlo es poner lo que es la cáscara para abajo.
It's just easier to
Es
cut
más
that
fácil
way.
para
Yeah.
cortarlo.
And then we'll just cut it in strips like that.
Y se mira lo está cortando solamente por líneas.
Yep. And then we'll have the rest of the finished peppers over there.
And then while she's finishing cutting that, I just wanted to let you guys know what I did right now. I saw that the quinoa was starting to boil. I wish I could show you. I don't know. But it's
Ya vio
just
que aquí no estaba ardiendo.
so once it starts to boil, that's when you want to lower the temperature.
Ya cuando mira que se está ardiendo es donde se tiene que bajar la temperatura.
And then you keep it covered and then leave it at like low to medium heat.
Déjalo como a temperatura baja a mediana.
Kind of like how you cook rice.
Yeah.
Así como cocinas el arroz.
Perfect. And then while that's still cooking, I'll just chop up. Yes.
Oh, you have it right here. Do you mind just putting it on?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll sorry. I know you got
Thank
dirty
you.
fingers.
Did not realize that came
okay.
off. Thank you. All right, so next we'll just be chopping up our celery.
Ahorita
So-
lo que va a hacer es cortando lo que es el celery.
So again,
Happy? Yeah.
and we're just gonna cut them up into decent sized pieces because these tend to shrink as well while cooking.
Se mira lo está cortando
Kind of about this
en-
size.
Más chiquito porque sí, a veces.
Like a half inch.
All right, and then we also got some broccoli and cauliflower, but to make things easier on us, we bought the package that comes in like the smaller florets.
Ya sí vieron también que trajeron coliflor y brócoli, pero usaron lo compraron en una bolsa donde ya tienen todos en chiquitas.
So as Silvana said, if the pieces are a little bit too big and won't cook evenly, you can do her trick and kind of like break them in half.
Así como digo, si los vegetales son bien grandes, no van a cocinarse bien.
And the last vegetable that we're going to be adding today is Napa cabbage.
Y luego el último va a ser lo que es cabbage.
With this, I just like tend to cut off the end first and set it off to the side.
Así como miran, lo que está primero cortando es lo que es al final.
And then
Lo
just,
pone al lado.
yeah, and then just kind of cut them into strips.
Y luego igual como lo hizo con el tomate o el pepper, en strips.
Just like that. Awesome.
Next step.
All right.
Okay.
So next we're going to be putting together our stir fry now. So we'll focus on this part.
All right. So with all the hard work done, we're gonna start putting everything together.
Ahorita ya con todo lo difícil terminando van a empezar a poner todo ya junto.
Okay. So I'm waiting for the olive oil to get a little bit hotter. I see it popping right now.
Está esperando que el aceite se ponga un poquito más caliente. Mira, pero todavía no tanto.
Just want to make sure it gets a little bit hotter.
Yeah.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, and if there's not enough oil in the pan after cooking the chicken, you can just add a little bit more.
Si mira que no hay suficiente aceite en el pan, puede poner un poquito más.
Still not hot yet.
Todavía no está caliente.
Oh, it's because your front one is not on yet. There you
Oh, no,
go.
I'm doing this one.
Yeah, this is the front.
Oh,
Yeah, and so this one's on in the back. That's why it's not hot. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can talk about the toppings. So we have some cashews and sesame seeds that you can put at the end as well.
Luego también tienen lo que es sesame.
Oh, sesame seeds? No, it
Like the
says this.
seeds. Yeah.
And cashews.
Son como esto. ¿Qué vieron?
Okay. Right now the quinoa's looking good, so I can just show to the camera and then maybe to the audience. Once like all of the water has kind of been absorbed by the quinoa, it looks pretty ready to go, and then we'll just fluff it up and have it ready for when we plate.
I think the olive oil is ready now.
Nice.
All right. So I'm just gonna add the garlic. And remember, it's 4 cloves of garlic, minced. And then a spoon. Can I use?
Yeah,
that spatula
absolutely.
there? Perfect. And then now grabbing me the onion.
Yes,
All right, and
got
then we're
you.
adding onion, which is about it's gonna be 1 cup.
Mira, están poniendo un vaso de lo que es la cebolla.
1 cup, yeah. There we go. Sorry, I don't want to get the other veg. And wait till I cook that down. All right.
Yeah, Yeah, you don't want to cook the garlic too long because it can get a little too dark and brown and it just starts to smell bad.
Luego no quiere cocinar por un largo tiempo porque luego con el tiempo va a haber un olor feo.
Yeah, I think just as long as it starts smelling really good, then you can start adding in all the other
Y así
components.
viendo que está rico el olor, ya pueden agregar lo que es los otros vegetales.
Great. So maybe we can add
The carrots?
Yeah.
Okay, so next, since we have some harder vegetables, we're gonna add the carrots as well as the cauliflower.
Ahorita van a agregar lo que es la zanahoria y el coliflor.
Oh, save the celery.
Yeah, I will.
Another half cup.
Y luego igual media copa.
About each of the vegetables we're using are gonna be around half a cup.
Ya estamos diciendo cada vegetal que están usando es media copa cada uno.
And remember, like I said before, your hard vegetables first. So the carrots, cauliflower.
Y recuerda como digo primero, lo primero es poner lo que son las verduras más duras, sus zanahorias, coliflor.
Then we'll wait to cook that down. But on the side here, we have our sauce, which is pretty much the same thing that we used to marinate the chicken in. So it was the soy sauce, the rice vinegar, the hot sauce, honey.
Así como dijo, al lado tiene su salsa,
Over
que
there.
eso casi como lo usó con el pollo, su vino de arroz, aceite de sésamo, con miel.
With the base of the chicken broth.
And then around this time too, I kind of like to add a little bit of the sesame oil to get the flavor out. Or you can add a little bit more of olive oil. You probably should do
Yeah,
that.
let's do.
Y luego igual aquí ahorita cuando están haciendo eso también me gusta agregar un poquito más lo que es el aceite.
About a tablespoon.
Yeah.
Una cucharadita.
All right, that's looking good.
How was the quinoa?
Looks perfect. So for the hard vegetables, we'd probably cook them for about like 2 to 3 minutes before adding some of the softer ones.
Por los vegetales duros lo cocinan como para 2 a 3 minutos antes de ponerles lo que son los vegetales más suaves.
Okay.
I'll probably add the bell peppers now.
Sure, yeah. Okay. This one we got some orange bell peppers. These are also super good with fiber, a lot of vitamins and nutrients as well. Wonder if our pan is gonna be big enough.
We made a lot.
Did we have any other questions or comments from the audience while we're waiting for our vegetables to cook down?
Preguntas que tengan ahorita que están esperando que sus vegetales se cozan.
All right.
So let's see how soft they are now. What you can do is also add some water to soften up the vegetables too.
Igual pueden agregar lo que es agua para
yeah.
que los vegetales se puedan hacer más bonitos.
Yeah, water or like even chicken stock if you have some extra of that on the side.
Hago también lo que pusieron enfrente, lo que es pollo.
Nice.
They're getting all this on the flour, right? They're getting all this on the flour.
I think so. Yeah, you can mention that as well.
También todo esto va a estar en la salida, en un papel para que se puedan llevar y puedan hacerlo también si quieren en sus casas.
Yeah, so we do have some handouts of this recipe as well as other Mediterranean-inspired recipes too.
También tienen recetas de esta receta y dietas lo que están explicando a la salida para que puedan tener más información.
Yeah, the broccoli. now.
Broccoli.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be adding some of the broccoli.
Luego ahorita están agregando lo que es el brócoli.
And then maybe celery too.
As well as the celery. Okay. It's a lot, so I'm going to maybe add half. Okay.
Can you guys smell it? Yeah. So what does it smell like? What do you guys think? Sounds good? Okay, good.
And if you have kids that don't like these vegetables, you can always substitute them for other vegetables too, whatever their favorites are.
Y si tienen también niños que no les gustan este tipo de verduras, obviamente se pueden sustituir con otras que sí les gustan, ¿verdad?
Nice. Looks good.
All right. So we'll let this just simmer for a little bit. And then we'll add the protein and then sauce to mix all together.
Yep.
Ahorita luego van a agregar lo que es la salsa y la proteína.
We can also talk about adding cornstarch. So sometimes because this is such a very light sauce, it's not a thick sauce that has like gluten or binding that most sauces that come with are tasty like, oh sorry, go ahead. So I'll repeat again. So with this sauce we wanted to add cornstarch.
¿Quieren poner lo que es el cornstarch? ¿Sin ir ahí?
Because since this sauce is so light,
Porque esta salsa es como bien
liviana,
liviana.
podemos agregar, we can also add cornstarch.
Y pueden agregar lo que es.
And we do 1 to 1.
Y hacen uno en uno.
Yeah, a ratio of 1 to 1. So
1 teaspoon-ish, yeah.
you want to do this before adding it there.
Y quiere ponerlo antes de agregarlo en la salsa bien.
Yeah, so we'll add this to the veggies, the mix, and then we'll add the cornstarch to kind of.
Yes, Linda.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we were saying you add a teaspoon of the cornstarch and then like a teaspoon of water.
And then it helps it like kind of bind more easily to the sauce itself.
Yeah.
Another alternative that we learned from our class is that you can also use arrowroot powder. If that's something that you've heard of. And it's the same thing. You would also dissolve it in a water slurry and then add that to the sauce. Yeah.
Igual también usando lo que es su agua.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, yes. So inside the sauce, we have, I'll move them out to the front again. The base of the sauce is chicken broth. So you can, if you want to repeat that, yeah. So that was about a 1/3 cup of chicken broth.
3 copas de eso.
We had a tablespoon each of the rice vinegar and
Cucharadita de vinegar.
light soy sauce. If you could choose one that has less sodium, that would be great. Or less salt.
También soy sauce.
And then we also added a teaspoon each of honey and hot sauce of your choice. So it could be like tapatio or sriracha.
Le dieron también una cucharita de lo que es la miel. Y también una salsa como tapatio o sriracha.
Yeah, we would also recommend that you also include a little bit of sesame oil too for flavor, but we just didn't have that today.
Y luego igual también se puede poner lo que es un aceite de sésamo para darle sabor.
All right.
Should we add the chicken?
All right. So now that our vegetables are pretty done cooking,
Ahorita que ya
wanted to show you
terminaron de sus vegetales, van a agregar lo que es el pollo.
I will help with adding the chicken. Okay.
Okay. Then we'll mix that just a little bit.
Yeah. Mix it up.
All right. And then we'll add the sauce.
Nos van a poner la salsa.
And then to add more sauce, you can really just add more chicken broth to make it, to add more volume. Can we just mix that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll increase the heat a little bit too.
Van a aumentar un poquito más la temperatura.
And then we'll just let this cook down for maybe another like 1 to 2 minutes.
Y luego van a esperar otros 1 a 2 minutos para que se pueda cocinar un poquito más.
And if this sauce is, oops, sorry, gonna move that to the side. If this sauce is a little bit too liquidy for your liking, then you can take this time to add the cornstarch or arrowroot powder.
Ya si mira que tiene mucho jugo, puede echarle lo que estaba diciendo ella.
Okay.
All right, should we add the cornstarch?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so right now what I see is that it looks really watery. And so I think I would add the cornstarch.
It's also because the vegetables itself have a lot of water, so it takes some time to kind of let that water evaporate. Okay. Let this thicken the sauce up a little bit more.
Agregó también lo que es el cornstarch porque dijo que porque los vegetales tienen jugo, lo hace que tenga más agua y por eso está agregando lo que es el cornstarch.
Okay.
All right, so I think it was time to turn off the quinoa.
Ahora ya apagaron lo que es el quinoa.
Yep, you guys can see. It's you want to make sure that the rim of the quinoa kind of like releases from the actual grain.
Quiere ver que lo que tiene dentro de la quinoa se va deslizando de lo que es al principio.
Right, because like with regular rice, it becomes a little more translucent. Same thing with quinoa.
Así como la...
Oh, yeah, pregunta.
Lo que le pusiste ahorita, lo blanco que es,
El blanco?
lo para expresar.
Oh, what I added? The cornstarch? Oh, yeah. Es un. So she was asking what was the cornstarch solution that I added? I don't know how to translate the cornstarch.
We have the cornstarch right there, so we can show it. Yeah.
It's así.
Yeah.
So you add 1-to-1 ratio. Una cucharadita con otra de agua.
We might want to add a little bit more, but also
so?
this, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, we'll show how to do it.
Just because we added a lot of vegetables. Yeah. We'll show how to do it right now.
I find sometimes if I wash my vegetables too soon, my vegetables will get watery.
Yeah, I think washing your vegetables maybe a few hours before or the night before you cook might help because, yeah, it does add a lot of water to when you're cooking them down. So, yeah, great point, Linda. Thank you.
Lo que está diciendo es que a lo mejor para ayudarle un poquito más, para que no sea tan jugoso, pueden limpiar lo que son vegetales un día en la noche anterior o igual unas horas antes.
All right, so here's a teaspoon of the
Lo que
cornstarch.
está poniendo ahorita ella es un almidón de maíz
And then
And a
teaspoon of water.
y luego una cucharadita de agua.
Oh, I need more.
A little bit more, yeah. And then you can go ahead and add that.
All right, so 2 teaspoons.
But the longer you cook it down, the more the water will evaporate too.
También si, es obvio, ¿verdad? Si lo más que se está cocinando, lo menos agua que se va.
Perfect. Thank you. There we
So
go.
it just binds fast, thicker, but not giving you the gluten and the extra sugar that you don't need.
Se hace más grueso y obviamente no le está dando lo que es la azúcar que no ocupa.
So now it's like nice and thick.
It's a little thicker, yeah. Looks
Ya
great.
miras, es un poquito más grueso y así es como tiene que salir.
Okay. Looks like we're almost ready to go. So, Silvana, do you want to start plating the quinoa?
Yeah. All right, so we wanted to show off some of the quinoa.
We have all these vegetable casualties here. I'm not used to this small of a pan. Yeah, absolutely. Because it has all of those whole grains and because it like expands with water, a lot of people notice that you can eat less of a portion and still feel full and also nourished because it has so many proteins and fiber.
Es importante notar que también, obviamente, porque tiene grano la quinoa, si agarras un poquito más, comparado a una porción más grande, se llena más rápido.
All right, so now we'll go ahead and plate. Oh,
cabbage.
sorry, yeah. So since we had Napa cabbage as well, that was our softest vegetable, so we're just gonna top it off with the cabbage and let it cook just for a little bit.
Y este va a ser el vegetal más suave, comparados a los que usaron, que eran más duros.
We totally forgot
Sorry
about
to
the cabbage.
to the very big pan.
Just let it cook down slightly.
Yeah.
Maybe let it.
Eso lo que le puso es repollo picado.
Like next time we can get like a
Bigger
higher, like yeah. Thing. All right. Any other questions?
¿Otra pregunta que tenga?
Sí. Sí, for the quinoa, so you're asking what the ratio is for the quinoa? It depends on the brand. You have to follow the instructions on the brand.
Depende en la quina que usa, ¿verdad? Todo tiene sus porcentajes aquí arriba atrás. Ellos usaron uno por uno, ¿verdad?
But this one, it was 2 cups of water for a cup of quinoa for this
Por
one.
esta usaron 2 copas de agua.
Yeah. Typically, if you don't have the instructions, it's usually two cups of liquid to 1 cup of quinoa.
Sí, casi mayormente si no tienen las recetas es 2 copas de agua y luego una de quinoa.
And at this point, you can also taste it to see if you need to add any more things. If you want it a little bit sweeter, you can add some honey, or if you want to add a little bit of pepper for some flavor. Yeah.
Just add a few. So for seasoning, yeah.
Y luego a este
Just
punto
a little bit of salt,
pueden
not too much.
saborear y ver para ver cómo les gusta, si quieren un poquito más, si quieren agregarle más ingredientes, se puede.
And then just adding some pepper. Perfect. And then we can add that like maybe on the top of the thing. Yeah. All right. Looks like it's ready to go.
Ya está listo.
Okay. So now we're gonna plate. Let me turn off the.
Va a agarrar un plato.
Okay. We'll make sure to get a little bit of everything.
Va a tratar de agarrar un poquito de cada cosa que lo puso.
On the side of the rice, make it look pretty. All right.
I like how, yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a good portion.
broccoli is not too burnt.
Okay, perfect. And then Silvana is now just topping it off with some sesame seeds.
Ahorita está poniendo lo que es
And then a little bit of cashews.
And also because we mentioned that nuts were also a great source of protein as well, we're gonna add some nuts to top it off.
y luego también para saber más rico le están poniendo lo que es cacahuates.
All right, and that's it.
Esa es la receta.
Okay. Any last questions from anyone, or
¿Preguntas que tengan para ellas?
would you guys try this at home, possibly?
¿Ustedes lo pueden hacer en su casa o lo vieron?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Is there anything that you guys would like to see for any future sessions that we teach? Any specific recipes?
Otras cosas que quieren ver en las clases que vamos a tener.
That was nuevo, okay. Yeah, everything is new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the future,
Perfect.
future sessions we'll talk about how to reduce sodium and what are replacements for sodium.
Y luego en otras clases que vamos a tener van a hablar cómo reducir la sal.
Sodio, and how to make it still taste good, because without salt, things don't taste good.
Y también a hacer cómo podemos saborear lo que es la sal, porque nosotros sabemos sin la sal, comida no sabe igual, ¿verdad?
Okay. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for bearing with some of our technical difficulties since it was our first time. But we hope you enjoyed the session.
Gracias